Greetings, YouTube. This is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Okay, this video is a little random, simply because I guess it's because I had a dream about it last night, and I'd actually tried to find information on it on the internet, but came up with nothing. Now, that's really rare nowadays, unless the thing that you're looking for is very, very obscure. And I imagine this dates back to when I was in middle school. Now, we had an English teacher in middle school who had a huge collection of what used to be called Read Magazine. I think it was a publication of Scholastic a long time ago. I'd seen stuff about it here and there, but I cannot remember the last time I'd ever seen an actual Read Magazine publication. Now, in the magazine, there were always different little plays and stories that could be acted out by students. Some really darn good ones too. There was one I remember was called Rose Tun and the Beast. This was back in the 90s when Roseanne was really popular, and so was a little show called Beauty and the Beast, and it was just a fun little mashup of the two that played off on some comedic references in the stories as to like the whole big romance thing in Beauty and the Beast, and the Roseanne, of course, called her Rose Tun. I'm pretty sure you can figure the rest out. Yes, it was just a walking fat joke. Anyway, they had one that was called the $56 million Sweat Hog, which was a mashup of Welcome Back, Kotter and the $6 million Man. That was like when my English teacher, who I talked to a lot, she used to bring me home after school. She had told me that she tried doing this with her other classes nowadays, which of course back was in the 90s. Welcome Back, Kotter hadn't been on for ages. I mean, I had never even heard of the show until it aired on Nick at Night. Oh, probably when I was in high school. But some of the jokes in there, of course, the students just didn't get. They couldn't. No one remembered how Horseshack's voice, his little laugh, or anything about how Mr. Cotter talked or anything like that. So the humor of it kind of went a bit over students' heads. It was still a pretty cool and cute little play, though. It's just unfortunate that didn't particularly last. I mean, there were a whole bunch of them. I used to read a lot of her old Read magazines. Now, there was one story, however, that stuck out a lot when I was younger. Now, once again, y'all all know I'm a big nerd. I love science fiction and fantasy. This was a particular science fiction story. It was sort of a horror slash suspense slash action science fiction story that was told in the form of a play. Once again, this is stuff that was, of course, you remember when you were in school and were taught reading, a lot of the things that you would have in your reading books were either stories or plays of some sort of thing. And so that's what we kind of that's how you kind of learned to read and learn the different types of literature. At least that's how it was when I was a kid. And well, from what I've seen and I had to do when I was a teacher, it's still pretty much done to this day. So anyway, all that aside, the story was called The Unbeatables. Dumb name, incredibly good story. What it was is that these two beings, and they were never entirely certain as to whether or not they were aliens, but the way they're described in the story, they pretty much seem to be aliens because they have smooth, hairless bodies. One's male, one's female. They're both bald. Well, I did say they were hairless. Anyway, one was called Seer, and the other was called Mover. Now, they came to Earth, I guess, and set up a fortress in Montana, which they called the Castle of Dreams. Seer had the ability to see, well, to hear or experience the thoughts of anyone that she wanted anywhere in the world. Mover was telekinetic, an incredibly powerful one, but he could affect objects anywhere in the world with his thought powers. And he demanded they basically came to Earth, terrorized the humans, demanded of all the world's leaders, all the world's known wealth, and basically to take control of all governments and to have all the the families of each and every one of the leaders of the world to come to their castle of dreams as hostages. Of course, the governments wouldn't have that, so that they tried several attempts to stop them, but unfortunately, Seer, being able to know their thoughts, before they were even able to put their plans into action, was able to stop them, kill them, maybe stop their heart. And Mover, excuse me, which we just tell Mover, who would be able to kill them in some creative way and stop their hearts. These people were. These were. I mean, just think if two people had those kinds of powers and were just sadistic and cruel. That's pretty much what they were. But there was this scientist, and I don't remember the scientist's name, but he came up with a way to stop them. He had been studying something called mantrix, which was basically putting yourself sort of in a trance to do actions that you already knew what to do, but never once thinking about it. That way, Seer was never able to know what you were doing, and so she would never be able to tell Mover, and Mover would never be able to kill you. So through his knowledge, he was able to form a plan, sort of, how would I put this? Sort of on the sly, indirectly, with the world's leaders. Certain people knew about this, but they had all been trained in this mantrix, so that Seer Mover never knew. And whatever materials and equipment he would need for the plan was provided in separate facilities built by people who did not know what they were putting together or assembling, and sent wherever he needed to be. So the story basically is like he trained this one couple in Mantrix by having them sent to this underground bunker where he was living, on the presumption that they were talking about future elections. But of course, he revealed to them, no, we're not. We're here to teach you how to be able to combat Seer and Mover. And it was like, well, we know that, now that we know, what's keeping Seer from knowing our thoughts? A second trick is they made a material that actually is able to disrupt thoughts. That this is the reason why Seer was able to know people's thoughts, because thoughts create like energy waves. And the material that he had built the base out of deflects those thoughts from being broadcast, outside the base. And so that was he pretty much just said, well, I think it's working, because if that's not the case, then Seer and Mover might just be playing a big chess game with us and maybe just giving us enough rope to hang ourselves with, and Mover could just crush the walls on us anytime he wanted to. So he trained these two people to go to the Castle of Dreams with a bomb, after being trained in Mantrix. Unfortunately, they had like some sort of an accident on the way, and it caused them to remember what they were doing, and that was just enough time for Seer and Mover to stop them and run the truck off a cliff. So these guys were really like the only real hope, except for the scientists. So what he did is he pretty much went it alone, went to the Castle of Dreams and managed to. Oh, well, now I remember. No, it wasn't that he went to the castle. Well, he did go to the Castle of Dreams with them, but he had gone in a separate vehicle and made it there. But just before they got there, that's what happened. Seer and Mover had basically let them think that they were safe, and then killed them right when they got to the Castle of Dreams, never realizing there was another guy who was trained in Mantrix, who was going after them. So he was pretty much the plan B. He basically, only weapon that he had was a shield made with that same material, and his Mantrix training. So he went up to the top of the Castle of Dreams after a couple of small incidents where he nearly got killed after breaking out of his own trance, and managed to get into the castle. Even though Seer and Mover were a little worried about, well, oh my God, how did they manage to get so far without us detecting them? They decided, well, this is the only ones they probably had, so they decided to go and rest. He managed to get inside the castle just as they were waking up, and he was still in his trance, and Mover was like was like, how did you get here? It's like, oh, I guess you're not as piddling as these little humans. And so, and he's not, and of course, Seer's like, I'm not getting any thoughts from him, Mover. And it's like, okay, you're starting to annoy me. And so I think the time has come for you to die. And so he directs destructive thoughts at the guy. And the second he decides to do that, the guy lets slip his thoughts, pulls out the shield. Seer's like, no, Mover, he's going to, and he uses, I guess, his telekinesis, bounces off the shield, and turns Seer into ash. And after that happens, the whole play fast forwards to sort of an aftermath where they have this cell built with the same material that the scientist made that deflects thoughts. And he's talking with the president, and he says, yeah, Mover's in there all right. And it was like, well, how did you manage to do it? So when he accidentally destroyed Seer, he went into shock. I managed to inject him with a sedative and call down a rescue team to take him away and put him in the and put him in this cage that we had built for him, through the same indirect manner. And basically now the whole deal was at the end. He said, like, Mover knows, we already told him, he knows that any destructive thoughts he may cast are going to be deflected right back on him. And so he said now his empire that he thought he was going to rule is only a room and a memory. I thought that was one of the coolest short little sci-fi stories that I ever heard. And I would have loved to get that story back, just to at least read it again, because it was just so good. I remember just really loving it when I was younger. And unfortunately, like I said, you get a lot of really obscure things that were, well, kind of lost in the bureaucracy of data, I guess. And I have not been able to find a single thing about it on the internet. But out there, whoever gets a chance to read this, I'm hoping that some of you will be able to find it if you can. So I'm asking for help, if at all possible. If any of you out there know about this, I would really love to get a copy of the story. If you can direct me, give me a link or something, I'd really appreciate it. And otherwise, I mean, I still have the general story in my head, even from all those years ago, because I'd read it so many times. So even if you're not, I just wanted to share it with other people because I thought it was really cool, especially those of you out there who do like science fiction. So that's just my thoughts. Channel just pretty much, I talk about whatever comes to my mind. Sometimes it's religious, sometimes it's not. And yes, for those of you who do watch my channel for the Tron Uprising reviews, I will have more coming. I had to stop for a little while, the holiday season and everything. And, well, just lazy. But anyway, I'll have more of that as well. So thanks for watching, guys. Any comments, questions, any kind of help you can give, hey, it will be greatly appreciated. Just leave your comments down in the discussion area. As always, as I say, keep it civil. And so until next time, this is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. As always, stay lucky and stay blessed. Take care.